Hey Todd, how you doing?
Good.
It's not like we're actually meeting each other for the first time as mentor stuff, but it's going to be nice to be able to work with you over the course of the next 10 weeks or so, and I look forward to learning from you and sharing my work with you. So it should be good.
Sure.
This meeting right now is about us to talk about what's going to start not this coming week, but the first week that I actually have to start doing the video lessons. And this is Module 7, Activity 2. For this meeting, we're supposed to talk about what I am going to start to do in 2 weeks. And so I think I'll just start out by talking to you about the unit that I'm going to do. So this is 10th grade literature class. The group is 10A, which means they've already been kind of tracked a little bit. So these are the higher level, more fluent kids in English. And we're going to start with a unit on graphic novels.
Okay. Does my schedule meet with your schedule for that? So I'll have it off at the same time.
No idea. If it's possible, you can come in and see some classes. Okay. If not, we'll have to rely on me having the video ready for you before, so you can watch it and fill out the rubric.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
No problem.
And we'll look at that schedule together. We're going to read a book called American Born Chinese, and it's about a kid that's he's an Asian kid. He's second generation. His mom was first generation, and he goes to an all-white high school, basically, and it's everything that he deals with in that. Right. So it's a very, very good story. During the first week or week and a half, my lessons will be based on introducing what the genre of a graphic novel actually is. It makes it separate than other types of literature, and then also the very specific terminology needed to be able to analyze a graphic novel. The students probably are very familiar with comic books and things like that, but they're not going to know gutter and bleed and these different types of things that they're going to need to use, right, in discussing it. So not only will we'll also look at the literary analysis associated with it, but an analysis of a graphic novel will do your standard textual analysis with metaphor, simile, personification, that kind of stuff, and then you need to double down on that and say, why did the author choose this angle? Why did the page go like this? All of that stuff is in there for that. And then also I will be getting into like the background knowledge necessary for this book. So it's told in 3 different plots. They're almost separate plots that they go 1, 2, 3, and then it repeats the plot, and it's the Monkey King. So it's a whole folk tale, right, that doesn't have anything to do with this kid in school, right? And then there's the kid in school, and then there's a sitcom, right, or an imaginary story that's told where they have all these incredibly horrible stereotypes about Chinese people and stuff like that. Then the final chapter is you realize that all 3 of the plots are one plot. Right, and it kind of reveals how that happens at the end. Cool. So those will be the different lessons that I do. 1 on the graphic novel, probably 2 on the terminology, because it's not just the gutter and bleed, but they need to learn camera shots and like the way they put things in.
These are art things.
Yes, absolutely. This is an artistic analysis as well, really, right? And then probably 2 with the most important literary devices that I'll focus on with this book. In terms of the expectations and routines, I think part of this conversation would be the idea that I was stepping into your course, and that's not really going on. I have my own classroom, but I do have expectations and routines for the kids. I've already started to put them in place, and I might highlight some of those. Not things like seats and tables, they know what that is. When they come in, I project what's going to happen in that class on the board so they know to come down, sit down, look at the board, get their things out, right? And that we've been promoting active listening, so you might see in my things that if we're doing something, I might mention, like your posture's down or not. But one thing that will probably happen is I will set up some particular group protocols, so kids will be in particular groups working on a particular activity, and I'll have informed them that this is how that group needs to function in that activity. You speak here, your role is this. So that would be a little bit about routines as it goes.
How about access to rubrics for the kids? They know where to find that. You have a Google Classroom?
I have a Google Classroom, so everything will be on there, from materials to the assignments to what they're going to be graded on, all of that stuff. The learning standards, I'm going to use the version of like the MYP learning objectives,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So they'll be analyzing, organizing, producing text, and using literature. And for the summative assessment, they'll be assessed on all four parts of that, right? So that will be part of what happens, not in the lessons that I'm going to record, but I'm going to have to go over what these objectives are, and what they mean, and what our scores are, things like that with them, which is going to be new to them. It's going to be different from the stuff they had last year. And then, so I have specific learning objectives for this unit, right? Obviously related to how they'll be graded on the standards, I think we should call them, right?
Yeah.
So they are, students will be able to identify and analyze a graphic novel for genre conventions, literary features, layout and design features, and theme. Okay. Second, they'll be able to create a scene of a graphic novel that demonstrates their understanding of genre conventions, literary features, layout and design features, and theme.
Oh.
Right? So that, and the culminating, there will be parts to the summative assessment, or there'll be more than one summative assessment. They're gonna make a scene, right?
Okay.
In an additional scene or their own scene that doesn't have to be part of the actual novel. They can make their own little standalone scene thing.
Oh.
And then they're going to write a comparative analysis essay demonstrating what they've analyzed in American-born Chinese to what they've created themselves.
Oh.
Oh, I did this similar to this panel in the book, or I've developed a character like this, right? So they'll be taking their own work and they'll be analyzing it in relationship to the original text.
Oh, that's good.
And I've done this in the past, so I have saved some former students.
Oh, that's
I have
really
some
good.
of their examples. They didn't have to write the paper, they gave a presentation, but I have the panels that they made and things like that, so I'll be able to show them a little bit.
Do you happen to have any examples of disasters? Or maybe you didn't have any
Yeah,
disasters?
nothing was a disaster. I mean, I had taught this unit in 7th and 8th grade, so the level, or what they're thinking about is a little bit younger per
Okay.
se.
All right.
But no, the kids follow through. In terms of just having the design there, that's what I
Oh,
have for them. Since their actual assessment with the analyzing and stuff will be a little bit different,
Okay.
I'll just work them through that and show them what it means by on the rubric. So that's kind of the overview of what's going to happen when we start with the recording. The last thing we need to talk about here is looking at the rubric, right? This huge monster of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing I think for us to realize is you do one standard a week. So we don't really have to look at the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to go in order. So I could do standard 1, then standard 8, whatever it is.
Okay.
I think I've decided I'm going to do standard 1 first.
Okay.
It works well with, I think, the instructional activities that I have in mind, that I'll be able to demonstrate these things. So this one here is, I understand how students grow, develop, recognizing the patterns of learning and development vary individually within and across the cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and physical areas, and designs and implements developmentally appropriate and challenging learning experiences.
Differentiation.
Basically, yes,
Yeah.
that's what this is all about. But I will have to show that I've done it for each of these specific
Okay.
things, right? So we'll see here that, we get the sense of just like the IB and the PYP, they have the command terms that differentiate
Right.
what will be the different levels.
Yep.
So we have this here. In one sense, yes, I always want to be outstanding, but I know this is a lot of work. So in addition, so I'm always shooting at first right away, being in the proficient area.
Yeah.
And you can see here that it should be doable, limited versus understands.
Right.
I think that I'll be able to demonstrate this. The trick is going to be making sure that the video shows all of it. So if the video doesn't show it all,
Okay.
there are two things that we can do. I have to write a reflection, and I would talk about, this wasn't in the video, but here's how it was handled in class, or I wasn't able to do this, but here's how I would,
Okay.
right? And the other might be if you've watched a class for me, or you've seen more than was just in the edited video, when you fill out the rubric, I think there's some place for some feedback. You might be able to say hey, look, the final video doesn't show this, but these are the things that are, in my experience with Jason, I know he does these things.
Okay.
So I got to do understanding the learner, meeting student needs, readiness for learning, developmentally appropriate instruction, and finally collaboration with families and others. This will be demonstrated, obviously not in the video, but I would talk about how I have the Google Classroom